What up, guys? Okay, let me look at this. So, Palworld. Has everybody heard about Palworld? It's going crazy these days. Just came out, sells 1 million copies in 8 hours. Steam servers are struggling. We're gonna take this video a little watch, and yeah, we'll see what's going on here.
Alright everybody, I'm Max, and on today's fix, that Pokemon with Guns game Palworld is selling like, well, Pokemon with guns. Sony's issuing some refunds for people who paid too much money for The Last of Us Part 2 on PS5, and the games that are going to be leaving PlayStation Plus next month. Let's get into it. Palworld, that game that can't not be described as Pokemon with guns, hit early access on Steam and Xbox yesterday, and it is already a hit. Developer Pocket Pair announced the game managed to break 1 million copies sold in around 8 hours post-release. Based on the steady stream of very positive user reviews, it's safe to say that people are really enjoying it too, which is nice. As of me saying this, Palworld is sitting at 3rd place on Steam's most played list, hovering around 350,000 concurrent players. Bear in mind, that's just on Steam. It is undoubtedly also getting its fair share of attention on Xbox, where it's free for Game Pass subscribers. Unsurprisingly, the downside to such a massive launch means that the servers are getting hit pretty hard, so some users have experienced connectivity issues. Pocket Pair addressed the issue on Twitter, saying, quote, "We are working to resolve this ASAP. In the meantime, some users have reported success in attempting to connect 2 to 3 times or waiting after launching the game." So basically try turning it on and off again and see if that works, I guess. On Steam, multiplayer allows up to 32 players to inhabit the same world cooperatively, but it's a little bit less robust for anybody playing on Xbox or on PC through Game Pass or the Microsoft Store, where co-op is limited to 2 to 4 players. Pocket Pair addressed that on the Palworld Discord, saying, quote, "We'd like to have dedicated servers on Xbox, but it's unfortunately not up to us and is quite difficult to negotiate at this time, but we are trying." There's no word on who it is up to. Pocket Pair hasn't yet responded to IGN's request for clarification, which is totally fair because clearly the studio has kind of a lot going on right now. Hopefully Palworld keeps up this momentum, and the success of the early access launch allows Pocket Pair to add everything that players could possibly want to see. But really, it's already got Pokemon with guns, so what more could you even ask for? The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered makes its way to PS5 today, adding bonus features like the no-return roguelike and guitar free-play modes, developer commentary on lost levels, and all of the polish you expect from a first-party PS5 game. If you're buying the game for the first time, it'll run you $49.99 here in the States, but if you already own the PS4 version physically or digitally, it's only a $10 upgrade, which seems shockingly reasonable in this age of everything getting worse, more expensive, or both. Apparently, pre-orders went up before the upgrade pricing was announced, so a select number of fans may have been so quick to reach for their wallets that they effectively overpaid for the game. For any of those individuals who already own the PS4 version digitally, Sony is issuing refunds for the difference, which is nice. Meanwhile, anybody who already owns the PS4 version won't even have the option of buying the full-price PS5 version digitally, just the upgrade. So if any of that pertains to you, now you know. And finally, speaking of PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier subscribers looking to get their money's worth, there are some PS4 games that you might want to jump on before they get delisted from the service in February. Here's what's going away: Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown, Hue, I Am Setsuna, Lost Sphere, Lost Words Beyond the Page, Oninaki, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Tacoma, Tekken 7, and Thomas Was Alone. Presumably you've got until February 20th to play these, since that's when the next batch of PS Plus games will be added to the...
We don't really need that anyways. Let's see. Palworld looks interesting. I'm actually thinking about getting it. I don't know. I don't want to hop on the hype train. I feel like everyone's just hyping it up, especially on YouTube. Let me see. Let me look this up. So hyped. Palworld is not what we thought. Palworld is actually incredible. Blah, blah, blah. Palworld is my god. Palworld is blowing up right now. Let's play game of 2024. That's not Palworld. Somebody already completed Palworld. Hey, look, it's me. Let's see, what the hell is Palworld? We kind of know what it is. Palworld official early access gameplay launch trailer. Let's see what people have to say about this. Do, 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 do. Just don't need any of these sponsored or overhyped videos. Hard to like sift through YouTube and actually find an honest opinion. Alright, let's see what this person has to say.
It's everything you wished for. Your site traffic is skyrocketing. Until this.
You've probably seen the crazy clips or trailers out there for Palworld, a vibrant looking open world survival game, but with creature collecting, base building, battling, production lines of pals manufacturing items, and well, of course, the weapons. It's no surprise the game is sort of being memed on as Pokemon but with guns in various comments out there online, but well, it really
Hey,
isn't
thanks for the
that.
follow,
Or at least not just that.
Brandon.
And a big thanks to Pocket Pair for providing us with an early
Appreciate
copy
it.
of the game, so I've managed to play it, sink my teeth into it, and get an understanding of what it's about so I can share my impressions of the game with you guys. I'm gonna try and be fair and honest with my opinion on the game as a standalone thing, rather than comparing it directly to something like Pokemon, because as you'll find out soon enough, it really is something else entirely. I'll start things off with my comments on its performance, because this can be a massive deal breaker for me and I'm sure many of you guys, especially with it being early
performance matters for
access.
sure.
Honestly, this is one of those rare games that while it is in early access, it runs extremely smoothly, with my experience having none or very little performance issues. Now,
And
I
the
do have
graphics
a
look
very
good.
high-end PC with an RTX 4080,
not surprised
but
it
I
runs
get a
smoothly, though.
consistent 120 FPS while exploring, and the biggest drop that I've had so far was down to around 70 FPS while in a menu, which, as long as it stays above 60, is very good in my opinion, and certainly rare for an early access game. Now, the graphics definitely aren't groundbreaking, but it is stylized and it's enjoyable to look at for a prolonged gaming session,
Hence
but I
the,
do wish there
high
was more
FPS.
animations for things such as picking up resources, trees falling down after chopping them, or just
I've
visual
played so many survival
representations
games,
of
I just don't
items
want it to
like the
be
PAL harnesses that you can craft. Instead, you just grab them and there's no visible
single
harness, even though you have to craft that before you can use them in this way. So overall, the performance is very good and the graphics are just alright. It feels polished in terms of its FPS, but everything else does feel very early accessy with missing animations, odd cutscenes, and some jank in the combat and gameplay.
Yeah, I agree. It does look kind of janky the way the movement is, especially in the flying. Like if you watch any videos with the flying mounts, that it just looks ridiculous. It's like jaggedy, moving to the left and to the right. It's like I don't know, it's just not smooth at all. Um, hey, thanks for the follow, Trevor. Appreciate it.
But let me say,
yeah.
if you have a Steam Deck, this game is actually very
love it, though.
easy to play on it. It's basically pick up and play. I downloaded it on my Steam Deck just for fun to see if it would work, and I found myself really enjoying it as a handheld experience. Again, the performance was very good on Steam Deck, so that did kind of shock me. So with some technical talk out of the way, let's talk about what Palworld actually is, because my expectations were definitely way off compared to what the game actually is. If you're expecting this to be a creature collecting game where you simply go out, collect some monsters, train them up to get stronger and stronger with battling, to then take on bigger and better creatures as you
That's what I'm
expand out your
expecting.
party, well, it's not really that, or at least that's only a portion of what it is, and it's not the full focus. This is really unlike any other creature collecting game that I've played before, and it really threw me off to begin with. Initially, I was ready to go out and collect some pals, battle them together, and level up, when in reality the game is actually more so a survival game, and so the survival game mechanics and gameplay systems that you would expect come first and foremost. This
Is it though? Is it though? As far as I've seen, the survival aspect is only hunger. So all you have to do is eat. You also have to feed your pals, but that's about it. So is it really a survival game first? I don't know about that. I don't. Yeah, I don't agree with that. But whatever. We'll see what he says.
means the first hours of gameplay won't be just collecting and fighting your creatures to level them up. It will be picking up rocks and wood, building crafting stations to make tools, to then chop down trees and mine rocks, to then build up more and more resources so that you can actually build a base. At the beginning of the game, the creatures in the starting areas are a lot more smaller and basic. They're called pals in this game, by the way, so we'll refer to the creatures as pals from now on. You can just walk up to the pals and start punching them or attacking them
Thanks
with
for
a
the
weapon
follow,
like a club that you can craft early
Ismail59.
on. And if
Appreciate
you
it.
completely off them, then you get some resources and items and even meat that you can cook, because you will have to manage a hunger bar on yourself and your pals in your party. Oddly enough, when defeated, the dead body kind of ragdolls,
Oh my
making
God.
for some, well, very interesting interactions, which is not something I thought I would see in a creature.
You just
collecting
roll
game.
them down
Of
a
course,
hill.
you're meant to get their health low so that you can capture them with the pal spears that you can find or craft, which again feeds into
Pokeballs.
the heavy need for resources just like any other survival game. So after a few hours of farming, building up and collecting a few of the basic pals, you really start to see that at least the beginning of the game is less so about collecting and battling and more so about the survival aspects of gathering resources and building. At At least this is until
Yeah,
you
maybe
get later
initially.
in the game where you have everything set up and functional so you can start focusing on the boss fights and battling. You see, the thing is, the pals in this game are actually more so tied to the base building systems and having actual functionality to make self-sustaining bases. This is because all of the pals have different job roles, with some helping out with building and crafting, others using their fire to cook, some using water to feed plants, or just hanging out and producing items like wool and eggs. So really, the initial focus of the game is all about gathering, building, and capturing pals to then put to work in your base so that you can get everything functional. It's only really after these hours of more generic survival game gameplay where you're going out and chopping trees down that you can finally then get geared.
I don't know, what's the point though? I mean, as far as I've seen, there's not really many cool bases. I don't know if you can even call them bases. So many other survival games out there where you can actually create massive bases and just so many more items and things to collect in this game. So it's just I don't know why this is so hyped. Rita, thanks for the follow. Let's see.
Up and ready to go out further into the world to actually start fighting and capturing cooler and bigger, higher level pals. My biggest advice is to temper expectations away from a pure creature collecting experience and more so into the survival genre, with games like Ark Survival Evolved or even Rust really being more so similar. Think of the pals more like your workforce, even though it really does feel quite wrong to say it. That being said, once you get past those initial building up stages, the game really does start to open up and shine in its own unique way. Using different pals in combat is fun, with each of them having different elemental attacks, abilities, and even interactions with your player, like I mentioned earlier with this cute little fire guy being basically a literal flamethrower. Collecting new pals is really fun as you figure out what they can do for your base, or if there'll be a new member of your actual party for combat or traversal, because you can ride and even fly them, making map traversal so much better. There's also special bigger raid pals with higher stats, shiny pals to find, and different traits that you get on them when you capture them. With systems like chain catching the same pals back to back giving you bonus XP, the actual systems of these pals are pretty fleshed out, and again, they are more so like AI NPC buddies for your base than actual creatures that you sort of care for and level up and travel through the game with. Your player character actually has a vital role in combat too, and it's basically a third-person shooter in that respect, where you can shoot bows, guns, even
So what's the point of the
RPGs.
game? Just to get through, kill some bosses, and be done? That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. What is the point? What do you guys think? I know there's bosses that you can fight, and I don't know if there's an actual story within the game or not, but apparently you can beat it.
You can dodge and use melee weapons as well. And you will need to use these weapons not just in POW battles but also in base raids, because yes, in single player, your base will still get attacked, so you'll need to set up defenses and protect your hard built up base. There's also co-op in the early access, and I believe there isn't going to be PvP just yet, so I'm not sure if that is coming and there will be PvP base raids, I don't really know, but for now it is single player or co-op, which is still pretty fun. But is it all fun and games? Well, if you can get past the starting hours of pretty generic resource gathering, then the game really does shine as you start getting more and more invested in the different pals and collecting them. That being said, we do have to address the developer's track record, particularly Craftopia, which is another survival action game from Pocket Pair, which released into early access in 2020 and, well, is still in early access. It's not a game that I've played for myself, but looking at the overall reviews on Steam, it is marked as mostly positive, but there are a lot of reviews and upset comments online, with people claiming the game is underwhelming for how long it's been in early access, and that it doesn't look like it will be releasing into a full game anytime soon. So I guess there is potential for
Yeah, I
Palworld
think
to
the
be another one of
interest.
these infinitely stuck in early access games, but we just don't know. There's
Yeah, it feels like the interest for this game is gonna die. It's coming up real fast, coming down real fast, just like a roller coaster.
always a risk in buying early access titles, so while the game is real, it is a bunch of fun, and it's one of the most unique titles that I think I've ever played, especially after initially hating it because my expectations were way off. It does still feel like an early access game, even though a lot of the systems are fleshed out and there is a lot of hours of content here for you if you enjoy the sort of gathering resources, building a base, and capturing all of these different pals. But I do fear that without continued support, updates, and improvements, it might be a passing bit of fun rather than a game that you'll play for years to come. So let's hope that this does continue to get support because I can see it being fleshed out into something quite special. But I'm reserving my expectations because from the track record, this could still be in early access in years to come. But with that being said, the game's also releasing onto Xbox Game Pass at the same time as its early access release on the 19th of January. So with Game Pass being a pretty good deal, it's very easy and cheap to just give it a go yourself. So yes, the game is real, it's super unique, a bunch of fun, and has great performance, but it's not without its worries of being an early access title. If you are interested in learning more about the game, then make sure to subscribe down below because we'll have some follow-up videos coming your way soon.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna wait. Don't really feel like I need it. I don't know where the hype's coming from. Oh, all the crafting mechanics, the building, it all looks pretty basic. Yes, you can put your little pals to work, which is kind of cool. Most of the combat looks pretty basic as well. I think there's just a lot of hype because it looks like Pokemon. I don't think it's gonna last very long. But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let's see, Palworld gameplay, walkthrough, no, Palworld first 15 minutes of gameplay. Meh. Meh, 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 meh. That's all I gotta say. Let's see what else we got here. Everybody's talking about Palworld. Here we go.
With 2024 in full swing, it's
Love a
time
good
to sit
co-op
down
game.
and take inventory of all the co-op games we can look forward to this year. 2023 was an insane year for gaming, and admittedly, as we sat down to work on this video, I was thinking, I don't know man, it doesn't feel like there's that much to look forward to, at least in comparison to last year. Well, I'm happy to take the L and say I was dead wrong. After some extensive research, we found 36 notable co-op games releasing this year. 2 more than last year's list no less. We'll start with all the games with firm release dates before moving on to the ones with vague release windows, and then wrapping up with some early access games that are probably making their 1.0 debuts this year. Just like last year, we'll be running through these pretty quick, just here to give you some dates, info, and move on to the next. That's more than enough preamble, let's go over every major co-op game coming in 2024.
In January, there really isn't anything major to touch on outside of the early access release of Enshrouded, a 16-player online survival title releasing on the 24th of the month. It's gotten good feedback during its demo, so if you want to check it out early, you soon can. Now, February is a totally different story, with major releases dropping every week. And whether you're hyped for it or not, one of the biggest co-op releases of the year is Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. It's a superhero third-person shooter with 4-player online co-op coming to next-gen consoles and PC on the 2nd, and it'll have crossplay.
One of our most anticipated co-op releases of the year is mere weeks away, with Helldivers 2 releasing on February 8th. This is a 4-player online co-op third-person shooter following up the excellent first installment. The game is releasing exclusively on PC and PlayStation 5, and we can't wait to dive into it. Those February releases keep on coming, with Mario vs. Donkey Kong releasing on the 16th. This is a remake of the original Game Boy Advance puzzle game, and it features 2-player local co-op as Mario and Toad team up to take on Donkey Kong. Look forward to playing it exclusively on the Nintendo Switch.
Nightingale is a game we've been looking forward to for what feels like forever, and on the 22nd we'll finally see how it's shaping up. It'll only be in early access, but if you want to try it out, it's a fantasy survival title with up to 6 players online. Sons of the Forest is finally getting its 1.0 release date on the 22nd, but Gabe and I already played through the whole game when it launched on early access a year ago. And we can tell you, it was great. There's even more that's been added since then, so it's never been a better time to hop into this 8-player online horror survival title, only on PC right now.
The last game to release in February is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake, dropping on the 28th. This is a remake of the original title, featuring 2-player local co-op, and is being built from the ground up using Unreal Engine 5. It's set to release on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles. March doesn't quite match the same onslaught of games as February, but there are some great titles releasing, starting with The Outlast Trials making its 1.0 debut on March 5th. This is a 4-player online co-op horror title that was previously only on PC, but will be made available on all consoles bar the Switch with its full launch.
Homeworld 3 is the long-awaited return of the sci-fi RTS series on the 8th of March, but it's bringing with it an extra little treat. The game includes a roguelike mode where you can play online with 3 friends called War Games. It actually looks really deep and helps sell the game to people who aren't usually into the RTS genre, like me. Coming totally out of left field on March 26th is South Park Snow Day, a 4-player online co-op action title. The game looks way more cooperative focused than expected, so even though I'm not a South Park guy, sorry to say, I might need to check it out on next-gen consoles, Switch, and PC.
I mean, it's okay.
Team Xbox is poised to have a very big year, and one game we're looking forward to is Lightyear Frontier. This is a 4-player online co-op open world farming game, and while there's no release date for this one, we're including it here because it's slated to release sometime in March on both PC, Xbox, with a day 1 Game Pass release. We're skipping right over April and May as we couldn't find any notable releases during those months, but June does have a pretty big title with The Final Shape, Destiny 2's last expansion for the Light and Dark saga, releasing on June 4th. After the disappointing Lightfall campaign, we're praying to the Traveler the team is able to land a ship on this one so your boys can be tempted to return to Destiny once again.
We're already at the end of the firm release dates, but it's our most anticipated co-op title of the year. Shameless plug for our top 10 video if you want to see the full list. Warhammer Space Marines 2 is coming out all the way in September on the 9th to next-gen consoles and PC. It'll have a 3-player online co-op campaign, and it's from the World War Z team, so expect to be mowing down hordes in the best way possible, as a giant super soldier with over-the-top explosive action. And that's all the firm release dates, so now we're going to be covering titles that either just have the 2024 tag, or a quarterly or seasonal tag for 2024, or maybe we're just assuming it's coming out this year. No particular ranking here, we're just listing these in alphabetical order, so just a bunch of games we hope will come out. and that's especially true with this first game, 33 Immortals. It's a co-op action roguelike for up to 33 players online
33?
for Xbox consoles and
That's
PC.
ridiculous.
It'll be day one on Game Pass and just has a general 2024 tag, but looks like a ton of fun.
Aloft is a game that's been in the works for quite a while. It's an 8-player online co-op survival sandbox game with a floating sky island setting. Aside from a couple betas, we've yet to receive any sizable updates on development, so it still has a vague 2024 release window. One of the most unique games to keep on your radar is Paladins, a role-playing game that's doing things a little differently as it's more like a choose-your-own-adventure title. I love the art style here and the laid-back gameplay, plus it's 4-player local and online co-op. Here's hoping that 2024 window sticks.
Core Keeper got a ton of positive buzz back when its early access started in 2022, and it's had a ton since. So when the 1.0 comes out this summer, it could be worth gathering a group of 8 for this online mining sandbox adventure. Announced at the Game Awards, Den of Wolves is the next game from GTFO developer 10 Chambers. Opposed to a horror shooter, Den of Wolves looks to be a 4-player online co-op heist game, hoping to rival the long-running Payday franchise. Fingers crossed we see some real gameplay sometime this year.
Go Fight Fantastic is a game we checked out during Steam Netfest last year. It's a hack and slash title featuring 3-player co-op both online and local. It has a really fun art style and we both came away pretty positive about it. It's slated to release on PC sometime in the first quarter of the year, so hopefully we get some news on that real soon. Up next is Hyper Light Breaker. This is a 3-player online co-op roguelite which follows up the excellent Hyper Light Drifter. It's launching onto early access on PC sometime this year, and it's easily one of our most anticipated titles of 2024.
Another game unveiled at the Game Awards was Light No 5.
Ooh, Light No
This is an
5.
open-world fantasy
Can't
game
wait for
coming from the
that.
team behind
It's
No
good.
Man's Sky. It looks to feature 4-player online co-op. Chances are slim it releases this year, but it looks really freaking cool. The Outlast trial might not be the scariest game we play in 2024, as Little Nightmares 3 is set to drag us into the world of children's nightmares sometime later this year. Please help me. It features 2-player online co-op and is set to release on every platform.
After playing Armored Core 6, I'm dying to play a co-op mech game, and Mecha Break might be exactly what I've wanted. While the game will feature various PvP modes, it also looks to feature a 3 to 6 player online co-op mode where you venture off to do specialized missions with your squad. No release window just yet, but I'm confident this one will hit sometime this year. If you want a game to add to your wishlist, then listen to this. Ra Ra Boom is a 4-player local co-op beat-em-up starring ninja cheerleaders from space in a fight
Ra
to
Ra
save
Boom.
humanity. Yeah, their words, not mine. It doesn't have a release window just yet, but here's hoping that crazy premise is enough to manifest it into this year.
A game
it's
that
not
we've
for
been
me.
harping on since we played it last year when it dropped into early access, Raven's Watch. It's a 3-player online action roguelike projected for its 1.0 in quarter 3 of 2024, and is one you'll want to have circled in your calendar when it does drop. Up next is Rotwood, a 4-player hack and slash featuring both online and local co-op. This one comes from the team behind Don't Starve. It has a cool art style, and we're dying to hear any news on it. Fingers crossed it does launch into early access this year.
Sentry is a game we've mentioned in our monthly series plenty of times. It's a first-person tower defense title featuring 2-player online co-op. It's slated to launch onto early access sometime in the first quarter of the year, so hopefully we'll hit you as that release announcement in the monthly real soon. So be sure to subscribe and watch the monthly, of course. Another title we were lucky enough to demo during last year's Steam Netfest was Surmount, a simple climbing simulator featuring 2-player local co-op. It's a silly faces game that has a lot of heart. It only has a vague 2024 window, but be sure to add it to your wishlist nonetheless.
From the developers of Warframe, we're getting Soulframe, and ignoring their ability to title things,
Soulframe.
these guys know
What
how
is
to make
this?
a video game. Soulframe looks to be a fantasy MMORPG version of the sci-fi based Warframe and currently has a late 2024 window. Cult indie classic Streets of Rogue is getting a sequel in Streets of Rogue 2 with both local and online 4-player co-op and a 2024 tag. There's a lot going on here, but it looks like some sort of RPG sandbox where you cause as much chaos as possible, and hey, that's what video games are all about.
Toxic Crusaders is a 4-player local co-op beat-em-up based on the
What?
classic 90s cartoon series. It follows the
Toxic
resurgence
Crusader?
of co-op beat-em-ups after the
Pity.
success of Shredder's Revenge. No beat 'em ups after the success of Shredder's Revenge.
It even has the mop guy. It even has him. Toxie. Oh my god. I played this game way back in the day. They're actually like bringing it back. What? This is ridiculous. Did you guys play this at all?
No release window just yet, but it will come to all platforms on release. Next up is The First Descendant, a 4-player online co-op looter shooter set in a sci-fi setting and being powered by Unreal Engine 5. Expect some flashy exosuit combat when it launches on all platforms bar the Switch sometime this summer. Nearing the end of our list, but we still have a couple bangers to talk about, starting with Towerborn. This is a 4-player RPG beat 'em up featuring both local and online co-op. It comes from the team behind the Banner Saga series, so the amazing art style shouldn't be a surprise. No release window just yet, but we're hopeful it comes out this year.
Easily one of the coolest announcements from the Game Awards this year was Windblown, a 3-player fast-paced action roguelite from the devs behind Dead Cells, one of the best roguelites in existence. It's coming into early access this summer. And to finish it all off, we have 2 games that we expect to release in the 1.0 this year, not because the devs have told us so, but because, come on, they just need to release already. Valheim is a 10-player online co-op survival title set in a procedurally generated Viking world that took the world by storm back in February of 2021, almost 3 years ago. Bring us 1.0 to PC and Xbox this year, pretty please, Irongate. V Rising is an open-world vampire survival game with amazing action, boss battles, base building, and of course co-op. It was literally our favorite co-op game of 2022, thanks to its early access release in May of that year, but we're fully ready to revisit it with our fingers crossed for a 1.0 release in 2024.
Thanks for watching, guys. We're very excited for another year of the channel and bringing you reviews.
Outside of the early access release of Enshrouded, a 16-player online survival title releasing on the 24th of the month. It's gotten good.
Alright, we gotta look at that. I haven't heard anything about this.
Batman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Superman, your friends are...
Adventure, survival, action, and some epic building. That's what's on the table with Keen Games' upcoming title, Enshrouded. Our team has poured over dozens of hours of trailers, gameplay, and dev blogs, and we're here to share everything you need to know before launch day. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and let's dive in to Enshrouded. Enshrouded is dropping into early access on January 24th, and by all accounts, things are shaping up well ahead of its launch. One thing we always look for when it comes to new games is just how much developers are pushing for the game to be out there ahead of its release. And in the case of Enshrouded, the team has already included it as part of multiple Steam demo opportunities with no restrictions on people playing, capturing, and sharing footage. In my mind, that is a big deal and enough of a reason to check out the game, so let's do just that. Enshrouded checks off a lot of boxes as far as genre is concerned. It blends together ideas of action, survival, open world, RPG, adventure, and sandbox. So let's get more specific about what the experience is like.
Ooh, I like how that armor looks.
As far as the early game experience is concerned, Enshrouded is first and foremost an adventure sandbox game. You awaken from a strange chamber, and after a few short minutes, the world of Embervale unfolds before you. At this point, what you choose to do and where you choose to go is completely up to you. There is a journal, and that acts as your main quest, but you could choose to ignore that if you prefer to explore other aspects of the game first. What I think most players will immediately realize is that the world of Embervale is broken into 2 parts, at least within the first zone, which is what everyone had access to during the pre-launch demo. In the Highlands, you'll experience a relatively peaceful gameplay experience. You can set down roots by building a base, gather materials, and explore ruins and small encampments. You'll occasionally run into enemies, that's just part of the deal, but overall it's a more casual experience. Now on the flip side of that picturesque Highlands is the Shroud, zones spread across the map covered in a toxic fog and filled with tougher enemies and valuable resources and treasure. As you get acclimated to the world, you'll realize that to progress, you'll need to journey into the Shroud in order to cleanse the Shroud root corrupting the world. Defeating powerful bosses, claiming their loot, and clearing the Shroud is a temporary act, but a pivotal part of the game's progression and most likely endgame system. When you need a break from exploring the Shroud, you can return to your base and upgrade. Enshrouded features a voxel-based world, and that means Vale itself is almost entirely destructible, giving players near endless control over the environment. As far as base building is concerned, this opens up the door for some incredible build potential, but more on that in just a bit. I think it's important to remember that Enshrouded is releasing into early access, so we shouldn't expect the game to be feature complete at launch. That being said, of what you've seen so far, what do you think? Be sure to leave us a comment down below if the game looks like something you would play. Now that we've got a 30,000 foot view of Enshrouded, let's take a closer look at some of the most important gameplay systems within the game, starting with gathering and crafting. From everything we've seen from gameplay so far, what's clear is that gathering and crafting should feel familiar to just about everyone, no matter their experience with survival games. Gathering is simple, with some items being interactable, while others require you to use a tool, such as an axe or pickaxe, to break them down into components. Where I think this is going to be a game changer for so many people is the ability to completely manipulate the world via gathering. Sure, you can harvest bushes and chop down trees, but you can also completely transform the world around you. That means leveling mountains and completely reshaping the land beneath you, and while that's common enough in block-based games, there's a fluidity to Enshrouded's destructible world that almost feels organic. This isn't a new idea. Other games have absolutely tapped into a similar system, but Enshrouded takes the idea furthest away from its blocky origins. On the crafting side of things, the loop is likewise pretty simple, with players inputting resources into various crafting stations and then waiting for the stations to output the materials. Depending on what items you're looking to craft will determine how long it takes for those orders to complete, but it's an automatic process. This is something I always enjoyed about games like Last Oasis, which we covered previously on the channel. It allows you to craft the items you need without locking you into a crafting animation, so you're free to go about your business while items cook away. One subsystem of crafting I really enjoy about the game is rooted in other games like Terraria and Conan Exiles, where players need to seek out NPCs within the world and bring them back to their bases. Providing them with shelter gives you access to that NPC's specific offerings, and in the case of the demo, players had access to the blacksmith, which opens up new crafting options, including full sets of armor. This is something I can see the team easily expanding on in the future, especially given that players will have access to all sorts of weapons, including wands and staves. It makes sense then that having other NPCs lean into the various sides of combat, not just physical, but magical as well. Truly, there's no limit to what the team can introduce utilizing this system, which is a good thing when you consider the long-term health of the game. As you might expect, all of these systems feed into the overall adventure game Enshrouded is laying out before players. Exploration and gathering leads to resources, which you then in turn use to craft more refined materials, which you can then use to craft better gear, only if you have the NPC sheltered within your base to unlock the crafting patterns. It's a relatively simple process, one we've seen before, but it's easy to understand, and so long as all the pieces work together, the developers can easily add on to or even expand the crafting and gathering in future content updates. On the other side of gathering and crafting is the building, which is intricately tied to crafting, let's not kid ourselves. All that chopping and mining not only provides you items to aid in progression, but also resources you can use to create. As I mentioned before, Enshrouded is a voxel game, and that means so much flexibility when it comes to building within the world. If you're someone that is meticulous about your builds, then you'll be happy to know that single block construction is a thing within the game. You can add and remove materials one block at a time, and this really looks to aid the player when trying to create very specific designs. On the flip side, there are also prefabs for players that don't have the time or imagination to dream up their survival home one brick at a time. Through all of this though, what's most impressive, at least to me, about the building is that even after massive manipulation, things still look organic, like they belong in the world, and that's something very few games have managed to do. Considering the visual quality of a game like Enshrouded, it's easy to see how building could become a standout feature of the game, just like it was for Valheim. While gathering and crafting are huge aspects of Enshrouded, it's hard to argue that at the center of the gameplay experience are the adventure elements. I wanted to point out that while it does play a lot like a survival game, Enshrouded leans much more into the action-adventure side of things, and the main reason for that is the lack of hunger, thirst, and the need for sleep, at least not in the traditional survival sense. Your character has multiple...
I kind of like that. I don't really feel like you need that stuff. But what I do need is some water right now.
Multiple buff slots that you can augment based on the actions that you take. For example, eating some cooked food might give you an increase in stamina or health regeneration for a period of time. Likewise, sleeping also provides you with a buff. These aren't terribly long, but they are important, especially in the early parts of the game, if you plan on jumping directly into the Shroud. Systems like this move beyond simply checking a box. They provide meaningful benefits, and while that might not mean much once we're geared to the teeth, in the early game, this is going to be huge. I think it's also worth pointing out that the gameplay doesn't seem to change much based on the time of day, another classic experience of traditional survival games. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and with access to only a small portion of the game, it's possible we just didn't get to experience how the day-night cycle impacts gameplay. Again, I think this is something the team could definitely evolve as early access development continues. I could easily see creatures from the Shroud attacking players' bases at night and turning base building into base defending. There's definitely a few different directions the team could take this based on player feedback, but the groundwork is certainly there. What also makes Enshrouded more action-adventure than survival is the use of an RPG-style skill tree system. As players defeat enemies and level up, they get points that they can then use to unlock various nodes. During the demo, the tree was largely incomplete, but players did have the option to lean into mage, ranger, or warrior-based skills. Again, this is where early access development is going to play a huge role in the success of the game. There are skills like Blink, which change the nature of the evade mechanic, replacing it with a teleport, and if the team can continue to build in skills that give players access to new mechanics and playstyle enhancements, rather than just passive buffs, I think it could have the potential to shape the gameplay in a fantastic way. Couple that with crafting items that aid the player, such as the much-touted glider, which gives players the ability to traverse from high elevations to lower elevations without taking fall damage, and you can start to see how all the systems will work together. That's honestly what I think is the most important thing about a game like Enshrouded on day one. You don't need to have all the bells and whistles figured out for the early access launch, but making sure that all the pieces work together is crucial to keep players engaged, even if it's only for a period of time before they run out of things to do. That being said, a first impression is everything, so having those systems all work hand in glove on day one is going to be huge. What we haven't touched on up until this point is combat, and I think this is one of the things that'll end up defining the Enshrouded experience. I've mentioned that Enshrouded feels more like an adventure game, and the combat is where you'll really start to feel that. Things are relatively simple, with players having access to a number of weapons during the early access launch, including swords, axes, bows, wands, and magical staves. Blending melee and ranged combat, players can tackle challenges as they see fit, and that all pieces together nicely with the game's co-op structure, which allows for up to 16 players on the same server. The action itself is straightforward, with combat boiling down to dodging, parrying, and attacking. Most weapons, melee in particular, have a few simple animations that string together, but as you unlock skills, this does enhance the action quite a bit. Ultimately, I think players will find that the combat is simple to start and a bit more engaging as skill progression occurs. It's clear to me the team is again building a foundation. The developers, Keen Games, also created Portal Knights, and you can easily draw a few parallels between the two games. Simple doesn't necessarily mean bad, and I want to make sure that's clear, because if you watch other videos from people who have played the demo, what they talk about is the pacing of the action, which by and large, people enjoyed. Ahead of Enshrouded's early access release, I think it's safe to say there are a lot of people excited about the game. It's currently the 12th most followed upcoming game on SteamDB and ranked number 8 for Steam wishlists, and that is saying something. Personally, what I'm most excited about is the building. Having the freedom of a voxel world that looks as good as Enshrouded does is going to make for some truly epic builds, and that's something I can't wait to see more of post-launch. I also think the team is building a solid foundation. There's not a lot of bells and whistles at this point, and that's okay, because over the course of early access, I think the right systems are being established to allow the team to scale Enshrouded as big as they want. I, for one, cannot wait to check out Enshrouded. In fact, there are a ton of awesome games coming out in 2024, and we've taken the time to map out the entire year for you. So if you're wondering what's coming down the pike, check out our biggest games of 2024 video already released on the channel. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.
Wait. I may check that out. Coming out pretty soon here. Okay, let me see. What? Yeah, it's okay. Alright, guys. Like I said before, Palworld's decent. Looks okay. Doesn't look anything groundbreaking. I honestly don't think it should be getting this much hype, but just because all these little creatures look like Pokemon, so everybody's getting the game. This game though, Enshrouded looks pretty fun. Alright guys, I'm gonna get something to eat real quick, and I'll be on later in like an hour. So, if you stick around, come back. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and peace out.